Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends, and I am here to talk with you about whether our thoughts create our world or do we create our world with our thoughts. For example, you may want something, and if you believe you have it, it'll come to you. But if you don't, it doesn't. This is one of the ways it's been thought about. Um, so today I have a great panel. All of you who have been watching have met these people at one time or another. I have my co-host Jean Alford here. Jeff Kenny Pulver is usually here on Thursdays, and Kurt Kruger has been coming in and out a lot in the past month or two. And we're getting to know each other and make this show something powerful and wonderful for you guys to have. Having said that, Jeannie, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. Can you get to it?
Once I unmute, that's the new thing for 2021. You need to unmute, um, which makes life fun. We've been having a series of really great conversations, from the power of vulnerability to allowing yourself to take risks, to ways to build your confidence. And this subject, do your thoughts make your world, or does the world make your thoughts, is along those lines. And it really, it pulls in what in some non-denominational philosophies is called the law of mind action. What you put in your mind reproduces outside, or as they say it, what you put in your mind reproduces in kind. And it's a philosophy or a thought or an immutable law that needs to be discussed, because do we have a role in changing the world, and how can we change the world if we're just one person? But what we talked about earlier was how changing one person at a time can affect the world. And I can't wait to hear how these guys delve into that deeper, because it's a great subject for all of us to consider.
And having said that, do you want to do a little deep think talking, Kurt, please?
Well, uh, it's not hard for me to do any talking, but what I'd like to actually do is offer a different idea. The idea is that as physics has proven, or there's the cosmic consciousness idea is that all is one. And so, if all is one, this little entity called Kurt is also the entity called Jeannie, and so on. It's also called this desk, and so on and so forth. Uh, so, is there any difference? Is it just what Vashishta, the guru of Rama, said? The world is as you see it. You can see it the glass half full or half empty. And actually, if you really understand it, it's neither. And I'm not going to tell you the answer if you don't know what I'm talking about, because it allows you to be able to create the answer. And it triggers people. The reason for triggering is for people to go deep inside, to open to that inspiration that's inside. But it's also, when we walk in nature, we can be inspired, especially with Jeff. He gets to see the night sky and photograph the awesomeness of this creation in the space. I'll call him a space cadet. He's a cadet for space, and gets to float around in it and gets to be inspired by it. And this is the key to life, is inspiration. That actually, enthusiasm means from the God within. Now, is it just the God within, or when you see Yosemite National Park, or you see an aurora borealis, you're in awe. There's no thoughts, and you're just experiencing bliss. So what is it? What's the reality? Jeff, what do you have to say?
Well, a lot. Thank you. I would just start off by the two words I put together with the framing of today's question is manifest destiny. That's truly what I believe we're talking about, and it's, it is truly up to us to manifest our destiny, or our destiny will manifest us. It's just a play on words. At the same time, it's fairly deep, and for those of you who like to manifest or allow themselves to, they understand in order to do that, we need to let go of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We have to let go of expectations. We have to be willing to receive without a time frame and understand what we do receive was meant for us to get it at that moment in time. That opens up portals to our universes. As I believe that we carry our past, our present, and our future with us all the time, that we are our own universe. We manifested and manifest and will continue to have been doing all of the above for eternity. And while our energy is present and seen in the containers we have here on this planet, we're able to influence change. I truly believe in the power of one. I believe one person can make a difference. It may take many people to implement, but one person to see and to do. And it's those actions taken that have ripple effects throughout time. And so in terms of in a very simple way, we are all, affected, at least from a tactile perspective, from the world we're in. And do our actions and words affect it? I think so, but it depends upon with whom we're talking about. What type of energetic being are we referring to? I do believe there are some here that are here just to create interference and noise, that they're not here pure of heart, nor is their energy necessarily by default light. If I focus only on the light workers, I absolutely believe we have the ability to work in the most positive way, help others find the light, which they only know how they can do, and they could find the brightness in everyone. There are some where, there are days and times where we forget where we are, and the world does have that effect on us, where the manifestation goes the other way. I do believe we are always in control if we allow ourselves to be in control. The challenge is not letting go, or for some, the challenge is to come forward and say, I'm ready. I'm ready to be present. I'm ready to understand, and I'm ready to lead. And somewhere in between all of this, there's a truth. And while our truths may all be different, I also believe they're all the same. And it's just how we are able to express this existence known as life in a way that's meaningful, that brings the world together as one. But then again, our manifestations may be completely different. Our dreams and ambitions may be completely different, but we want to coexist. I believe collectively we can co-create. And I do believe that that four is better than one in many things. But if you have a dream and a desire, when you believe in it and allow yourself to get to the highest vibration possible, pure magic can and will happen. It just takes that moment to do it. And you may even get blindsided by it because others may see it in you before you even see it in yourself. But then, wow. So yes, for me, it's manifest destiny rather than destiny manifest. Thank you.
And I agree with you, Jeff, because we can make our world from what we want it to be. And I read a quote today. I think it was a quote, but basically what it was saying, we flip the switch. If we want to be positive, we can do it, or if we want to be negative, but we can flip that switch to positivity at any point when we become aware of what we're thinking. So if we don't think we can do something, we can't. And if we think we can do it, we can. And that's a big point. And Jeannie, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I'm excited because this went right into deep right away, which I love, but I'm also very practical. So there's questions that pop up as I'm listening to Kurt and Jeff. It's like, but how do you do it? And it comes down to, when you start to think about it, what is the perception that you have, and finding out for yourself, am I negative? Am I positive? Am I in the middle? And that's often very difficult. I remember when I was much, much younger, I had a roommate who actually said, "Why are you so negative?" And I had no idea what she was talking about. And we talked for, as roommates will, sometimes deep into the night. And what I realized was I was reacting to things as if they were catastrophic. In her mind, they were just issues that could be dealt with, but I was looking at them as if they were catastrophic. And when I got to the point where I understood what she was saying, it's one of those mind-blowing kind of moments when I had to change my perception. And that made a huge difference in how I started to respond. And that's one of the things that I talk about now, is we have a superpower that we don't use very often, and that's called the power of choice. We don't have to respond the way, or react the way people expect us to react. We get to take a moment, center ourselves, and respond in a thoughtful, deliberate way, which allows us to maintain our perception and keep moving forward. But if life is full of perceptions, we have to be able to point out, this is what I see versus what you see. And 9 times out of 10, disagreements are because people are talking about different things, but they use the same words. So they're not even aware that they're looking at something completely different from each other. I have a friend who's a relationship navigation coach. And when she speaks, she talks about sometimes it would be better if, for men and women, instead of using the same language, if we had different languages, because men see things differently than women. And her work is to get both the couple, the man and the woman, to see things a little differently so that they can balance their relationship. And it's brilliant when you start to think about it, because the experience of the masculine is different than the experience of the feminine. Not to be heavy, but I've had this discussion fairly recently where a gentleman said, "Well, you can go out and go into a really cool bar and just sit and enjoy people." And I looked at him and I said, "Obviously, you've never been a woman, and you've never understood the dangers that women have to plan for. It's a completely different world. If somebody walks up to you, you turn around and you go, 'Look, dude,' and you guys have a moment where it's a power struggle. If the same thing happens to me, the guy's going to overpower me, and I have to think in a much different way." And he had a moment of insight there where he realized why. And he said this, it's like, now I understand why we had chivalry all those years ago, because it's a different experience, and that's the part where, as Jeff said, you can have destiny manifesting, where you let the experiences guide you and you don't think deeply, and you just continually react. Or you set a goal, you set a vision, you have a dream, and you start to see things from that perspective and see how synchronicity kind of unfolds in front of you. And the other thing that I found was really important in this discussion was to acknowledge that we have to celebrate the wins. We have to celebrate when things work our way, because the more we celebrate, as Jeff mentioned, the vibration, we get to move our energetic vibrations up. It's a huge difference when you start to celebrate the good. Accept what you might interpret as bad, because there's a lesson in there, but celebrate the good so that you can continue to evolve and grow. So that's one way that our thoughts help guide and shape our world.
I agree with that, and it's a beautiful expression, because without the thoughts, what are we? We're still beings. We're experiencing just what you might call consciousness, but like you both have said, we can manifest our destiny. Wim Hof has proven that you can climb Mount Everest in a t-shirt. I did a workshop with him. I got into the ice water, and I'm saying ice. It was half filled. This 3-foot tall portable pool was half of ice and half with water. And I stayed basically longer than 98% of the people. And it was just because, and I ended up laughing driving back from a swim workout. My twin brother, identical twin, I know it's scary, but that's another story, did a donut on the freeway, and I calmly said, slow down. And he's supposed to have been the smarter brother. He got the better grades. He put his foot on the brake. So we did a donut across 4 lanes of traffic, heading the guardrail, totaling the car. And when the tow truck guy came and he said, can you guys pick up the car? I said, sure. And I looked at my brother, and he's in shock. So I picked up the car. The guy put the tires underneath, and we drove away. How can a 6-foot tall, 150-pound 17-year-old pick up a car? He had never trained in strength training. He's only been a swimmer. He's coming back from a swim workout with world record holders. And this guy was only from San Fernando Park Pool, and I just joined that team. How can that happen? The only picture in my book, Winning Ways for Living, is a picture of a man lifting over 7,000 pounds with one arm. What can't we do when we have that focus, when we don't think we can't? In South Africa, playing beach ball, a guy jumps up and spikes the ball, hits a really good spike, but he comes down wrong. You hear this pop. He blew his knee out. So I drag him off the court, and because I teach sports psychology and peak performance practices, I said, can I please help you? And he said, okay. And I put my hands on his knee, and I guided him through a visualization, a simple thing that the Pratyabhidya Hridayam, which is about 1,000-year-old text in Kashmir Shaivism, teaches about visualization. And I gave him this simple practice. But for the first time in my life, it just came to me to thank God for having healed this guy. Just like Jesus supposedly thanked the Father for having healed the dude, like as if he wasn't who he said he was. I just gave it a go. I acted as if I was just exploring, like experimenting with life, just like everybody can. It's our life to choose, like you mentioned. So when we make these choices to adventure, to give it a go, as they say in Australia, then we can see somebody healed or a car picked up. Women seeing their child pinned under a car have been picked up a car and with one hand held the car and pulled the kid out. How does that happen? It's not because women are weaker than men. It's because there's no thought in the mind at the time, and they do what is necessary, and it can be done. Other people get into their mind, and their mind makes them crazy. Their mind says, my kid, and all that. So when we're calm, when we're clear, when we're present, we get a present. And this is what we can do. There's magic that happens in life when we decide to give it a go and experiment with magic. Thank you. Done. Jeff, you turn? Or Carla, I'm not leading this whole thing. So,
Carla, you take it any way you want. I'm open for direction, Carla.
It's okay, Jeff. I'll come back later. Go on.
Just to take a shift to the right and to the left, I think there's the manifest destiny part, and then for me, from practical terms, it's the message where people can control their lives that has to be heard by those who need to hear it. And that's not so much a reality as much as a practice. But when we allow ourselves to understand that we can control that, and there's a difference, there are certain things in our lives which we do not control. And when you can learn to let go of worrying, because worrying is completely a waste of time. And arguably the only resource that we don't never have enough of for any of us is time. So when we learn not to waste precious time by worrying, and we learn to focus on the things that are within our domain to be altered, anything becomes possible. And endorphins and adrenaline are great rushes that empower magic in a physical sense. But it's when we surprise ourselves and challenge ourselves and start to understand there's worlds bigger than us, and that we have an opportunity to interconnect those worlds by living and discovering our purpose, our intention, understanding who we are and what we're here to do, how we serve and how we connect, and how we explore and how to add value each and every day. If we made it a practice to do something good each and every day, the world would be a better place and is a better place. But we have to take that action internally and then make it external. And that's where, we're manifesting a positive destiny in terms of bringing forward positive change, small at a time, but allowing ourselves to do it. Some people are remembered only for the very big things they've done, but it's those little teeny things that matter so much. And in a summer, which in 2021, which a lot of people were calling the summer of love, I would argue it should be the summer of self-love, where we learn to teach ourselves that we can give things to ourselves that no one else will ever give to us, but we will love us, I'll care us, and we will do what we need to do to make us happy. That comes from, if you will, manifesting a positive destiny. Because in the end, while we may be verbal, we may communicate with family and friends, there's certain things that nobody knows what we really want, what we really, really want. And we allow ourselves to embrace those passions. So much more comes out of it, because I believe that a happy, positive person can affect change much more than an angry person. And that inside some angry people are people that are misunderstood, whose voices are just not there. And there are chances and ways to take the angry out. But I do believe in taking a positive approach, and that anyone and everyone who's within earshot has the opportunity to control who they are, how they are, and what they want to do. It does come very conveniently to manifest destiny from a passion perspective, to allow yourself to discover what it is you most align with and follow the path of passion, because that gives you that empowerment of knowing that you're in the right place at the right time, and the strength to understand that other people don't need to understand what you're doing. If it feels right for you, have the strength to be you. They can catch up eventually. But when we talk about manifesting a destiny, it requires inner core strength. You need physical core strength to lift weight, but to lift yourself into the future, it's a cosmic core strength that you need to focus on. At least that's what I've experienced. Thank you.
And the point is, and I want your thoughts on it, it's our choice. And when we're first beginning to realize it, it may be difficult to remember that I can change my way of thinking. I can flip the switch. We can continue going down the road that seems like the hill going downward. Or we can change our thoughts to bring ourselves upward by thinking about what is the best case scenario. What is the best thing that I would like? And when we begin making that flip of the switch, then we begin changing our way of having abundance come to us, having that love everything that we want come to us. And Jeannie, you look like you want to say something.
Well, it's been proven that's the case. Making the choice between the stimulus and the response, you have a mini nanosecond of time to make that choice. So you need to be aware. And I like to say between that, the stimulus and the response, you get to pick heaven or hell. Heaven being the positive pushing you forward, and hell being chaotic and just reacting and not having a chance to be heard. And that takes practice. It's a muscle memory kind of thing. You have to start with the first step of saying, I can change how I react. If we look at the chaotic world we live in, it's really hard to find time to know what your thoughts are. And if you listen to somebody like Deepak Chopra, who talked about the speed of bosons and quarks, and then he said in his talk that our thoughts run as fast as those bosons and quarks. So it's interesting how we can influence those bosons and quarks. And I was fascinated. That was one of those watershed moments that I remember listening to this going, wait a minute, we're all energy. Our thoughts move as fast as subatomic material. And yet we're only aware of 10 to 20% of our thoughts. So that 80% we're unaware of affects our life, because that's why we walk around like automatons sometimes. We're not aware. And when you start to be aware of the thoughts, the ones inside your head, sometimes I call it the committee, because there's so many of them. Some are negative, some are positive, some want you to move forward, some want to hold you back because it might not be safe. Some are behaviors we learned when we were kids, some are messages we heard as we were growing up. There's so much stuff in our head, and the left brain is so logical, it thinks you need to hear every single thought, but it's physically impossible. And the right brain has no concept of time and wants to see a picture. So that's when I started to realize that you need to have a visualization, have a goal to kind of cut through, excuse the harsh language, but the crap. There's a lot of crap. I call it the miasma. There's stuff that we wrap around in our head that keeps us where we are, because the universe doesn't like a vacuum, so it wants to keep us where we are. So if you want to make a change, you got to throw out a whole bunch of thoughts and say, no, that doesn't do me any good. But you have to fill that space with positive, constructive thoughts, because otherwise the universe will fill it with its own. It'll bring up, the issues that you had when you were a teenager, going through puberty and trying to figure out your place in the world. And heaven knows we don't need to go through that again. We did it once, we learned it, we need to let that lesson go. And that's why I oftentimes will counsel my friends and the folks I work with, to pay attention to those negative thoughts, because it's trying to tell you something. It might be the ego telling you need to be safe, but stepping out on that stage is not good for you, because you need to be safe. People might not believe you. But if you start to pay attention to what it means really what it means is you're going to step out. You're going to change your world. You may not want to change your world. You might want to stay comfortable. This comfort zone is really nice. And when you learn the lesson that, I'm good in my comfort zone, but I need to step forward, then you can do it with a lot of confidence, because you've learned that lesson, you've integrated that thought pattern, and you've allowed yourself to say, that's good, I'm in charge now, and move forward. So when you get out on whatever stage it is, whether it's something that you're doing at work, or it's something that you're writing for a blog post, or if it's simply how you're going to discipline your children different than your parents disciplined you. These are all things that are tough to do. And I can tell you, I raised a child who's brilliant, hyperactive as all get out, but he's brilliant. And I heard several times that I should be, smacking him down. I should be putting more boundaries on him was basically the message. And because that's how my parents raised us. And I actually had to stand up to my mother at one point and say, I'm his mother. I'm choosing not to use corporal punishment. We are going to do a different thing. And she told me how wrong that was, but I had to be strong enough to say, let me do it my way. And instead of using corporal punishment, I did something really creative. I put his toys in timeout. So believe me, when he was 10 years old and he could not touch his PlayStation 2 at the time, he thought that I was the devil incarnate. But he learned a lesson. And I've told him now these days, he's now a father. And I said, I chose to do different with you. I chose not to quell your spirit, because it's your spirit that I love. And that was very difficult. And that changed my life. And I've actually become much more positive as I watch him blossom. So it was a choice. And that's why I say choice is a muscle memory. Where destiny manifests us, we've been told by society there are things that are just not right. There are actions that we shouldn't do. Some of them are good. You should wash your hands all the time. You should follow your doctor's advice to keep yourself healthy. You should not eat sugar, 24/7. Even though it tastes good, it's too much is not good. So there are some norms that we've learned. You don't yell fire in a theater, those kinds of things. But there are some norms that we don't need, that we can break away from. And that's where we get to manifest our life. We don't have to stay in our comfort zone. And oftentimes our comfort zone is dictated by the people around us. And when you make those changes, you need to understand that the people around you might try to pull you back because they're uncomfortable. And that's okay. And you can acknowledge it. Yes, I'm making changes and I understand that you're uncomfortable, but come on this ride with me. Take a step out of your comfort zone. If we all took a step out of our comfort zone, it would be amazing to see what we have in front of us. But it's muscle memory. Make one decision, get comfortable with it. Make another decision, get comfortable with it. Get to a point where making your choice for you is no longer seen as selfish, but as self-sustaining. There is a balance in the world. We get to create the balance, but we also get to put ourselves in the center of it and watch ourselves grow.
Now, having heard you say that, I do have a question. Many of us, when we get into a negative down swirl, maybe not the right word, down movement, we forget to change our thinking. We don't even know that it's possible to think positively because we're thinking, oh no, how am I going to get this done? Instead of thinking, oh, here's a little loophole. I can jump over it and go forward. How do you suggest we change our mind or make it easier to change our thinking?
Go ahead, Kurt.
I have a point about this idea of this vacuum. Nature does abhor a vacuum. And one of the things about affirmations that many people use in getting that positive idea into their head to maybe make it happen more, because they'll repeat, instead of, I'm so sad or depressed, then they say, no, I am happy, I'm healthy, I'm holy, whatever it might be. When we create a vacuum, instead of your mind is telling you, no, you're not. That's why you're doing this stupid thing. You're not happy and so on. So your mind is fighting. But instead of doing that, there's something called affirmations. It's written up in Winning Ways for Living, but there's a book called Affirmations by Noah St. John. Great book about asking a question in the present tense about what it is that's real. So instead of saying, I'm I'm so happy instead of I'm so depressed. You would say, why am I so happy now? So you ask that question to yourself, and the universe provides the answer. Suddenly, you start to be able to, when you repeat it enough, you're asking your inner self, your consciousness, to come up with the answer. And it comes up more like your actions rather than just thoughts. Your actions start to happen in a more positive way. You start to be able to create things that allow you to be more happy, to be more healthy, to be more holy, because you ask the simple question. One of the world scriptures says, ask and ye shall receive. And again, this idea of seeking something, seek and ye shall find. Yes, we get to seek what it is that we truly want rather than looking at all these things that we don't. And that's what the news is. The news is all the things we don't want because it attracts people for some ungodly reason. That's why they say ungodly, right? And so we have this way to be able to bring our creation. And when we are created that way more, when we are walking the talk more, it radiates out to others. Just walking on the street, it's easier to smile and it's easier to get smiles. And this is what brings about this transformation. It's like a flower blossoming. Everybody sees, oh, that's a beautiful flower. It's in this way. And we get present with it. And so we get to be a gift when we're present. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, Carla. There are a number of practices that people talk about, but I think that the response, if you get into that downward spiral, is very personal. But one of the practices that I've been aware of and I try to use from time to time is gratitude. Sitting down and just writing 5 things that you're thankful for. Whether it's, I'm thankful. Okay, I have a brand new granddaughter. She's a month old. If I'm thankful that I get to go and hold her. I'm thankful that my house is clean. I'm thankful that I have a dishwasher so I can attack the dinner dishes and not spend hours or days. Because, I grew up in a family of 9 and, 7 kids and 2 parents. Dinner dishes took an hour. I'm thankful I can do it in 5 minutes. Just those little mundane reasons of being thankful help flip the switch, as you said earlier. The other is meditation, and not sitting down for 20, 30 minutes, which is a great thing to do, but just 2 minutes of breathing, just breathing to center yourself, because then you have a different perspective when you walk away. When I worked in the corporate offices for several different companies, I used to go take a break. I would go into the ladies' room and, sit and be away from people. And then I'd walk out and be able to handle whatever crisis they threw at me, and the other thing that I did is I actually took Tai Chi once, and I want to go back to that. It's a great exercise and practice. But there's in the beginning, you kind of go up on your toes, you raise up, and then you come back down, and you have your hands pick you up and take you down. Somebody be yelling at me about something. I was in PR, so I was handling a lot of crises. How do you handle that in the public? And they'd be yelling at me about something that I had no control over, but I would go up and I would come down. And they had no idea that I was taking a deep breath and I was letting it go. And that just in 3 motions, I would center myself, and then I could say something like, so tell me how that's helping the issue. And that would take the emotion totally out of the situation. And then we could get down to what are the facts. And then I could handle putting together a strategy. I do that in my daily life. Things get out of control. I kind of go up and I kind of come down. And it's just it's a movement that makes me remember that I'm always centered. And it didn't come easy. I was not the person 20 years ago that was going to be calm and collected. I wanted to fly off the handle. I kind of craved that drama. I needed it for some reason. I think it's because what Jeff said, I wanted to be heard and I wasn't heard. What I found with this practice is when I calm down, people hear me. So in the middle of a big crisis, I would I learned to bring my voice down and say, gentlemen, are we ready to really look at this issue? And this room full of crazed executives who think that the world's going to fall apart would stop and look, because I'm not screaming and yelling. I'm very calmly saying, are we ready? And then that would change. So that's how I changed my world, by simply being centered. But it took practice. It took somebody having the nerve to tell me I needed to calm down, and here's how you do it. And literally, she told me, don't even think about it. When you're at a stop sign or a stoplight, take 3 deep breaths. That's all I want you to do. And a couple of weeks later, she goes, how is it? And I was like, I feel different. I didn't even think about it. It's just every time I was at a stop, I took three breaths. And then she started telling me about centering and coming back, not being spread, not having your energy just dissipate everywhere, but being spread, but bringing it back in. And then I started into a philosophy about spirituality. And then I was open to, so it was just learning one positive change, making it muscle memory. And when we're back in the real world, you guys might start laughing when we see something that's a little bit difficult and you see me go up and come down, because that's the way I kind of calm myself down, center myself, and that gives me time to let the fight or flight move away. So my dad would say engaging brain before opening mouth, but this fight or flight would move away and my thoughts come back up here, which is more logical. And I'm able to handle whatever the situation is. Baby crying, and believe me, a 1-month-old will cry crazy and drive the parents crazy. I come in, I go, give me the baby, and I just breathe and rock her to be, not to sleep, but to calm down, because I'm in a different space. Have a car accident, and I've done this. The guy comes out and he goes, I'm so sorry I hit you. And he's afraid that I'm going to scream and yell. And I'm like, okay. What's your information? Let's handle it. It changes how you show up. One tiny little change in behavior changes how you show up in the world. So I like to think of myself as being centered. My friends call me the breathing lady because I'm constantly telling them to take a deep breath. So that was one change that made a difference.
Thank you, Jeannie. And you're right, learning to breathe, because when we are breathing, we are getting centered in the thing that keeps all our lives afloat. Our breath is the one thing we all do, and it's the one thing that we all share, because we couldn't be alive if we weren't breathing. And the air doesn't change because I'm in Washington, D.C., and you're in California, and Jeff is in New York, and someone may be in Pakistan. We all breathe the same air. Jeff, you have been so quiet, it scares me.
Well, I am listening and processing, but I was going to jump in just to share a few things. I do believe in breathing. I advocate people to take a breath and count and let go as a means to calm, particularly when a moment hits. I also believe that when you find yourself in a situation which is losing control and spinning out of control, do what they do in improv and answer and reply yes and, as opposed to yes but. That will help relieve the conflict. But to what Carla was asking earlier, in terms of practice, in terms of how do we manifest our destiny, how do we understand there's a change that needs to happen that I want to see in the world, and that change is with me. What are the steps that I suggest to others to follow? It's very simple and very hard at the same time. And the core of it and I help people who I work with who want to learn how to manifest. It takes nothing other than a piece of paper and a pen and a desire. The first thing I tell people to say is, well, what is it you want to manifest? They speak it. Then they write it down. Then they say it out loud. I mean, they visualize it, if you will, in their head first. They write it down, they say it out loud, and then it's witnessed. Once something is witnessed, there's a much higher likelihood of something happening than when something is just in your headspace. And sometimes it takes a lot of strength in order for you to say out loud in front of somebody else what it is that you want to see happen. But what is ridiculously amazing is how then the magic happens and what you're looking to manifest happens. And if you're open to receiving signs from the universe, the signs are present. Usually if I'm walking down the street talking to somebody, I start hearing noises, and I connect each noise as an affirmation for what is spoken. And it's very sympathetic how it happens, but it's fairly amazing. And then when I sometimes get to like the root of exactly what everything is meant to mean, there's such a blanket noise that the person doesn't hear, and they're standing next to me, they can't hear it. And it's the message, well, they got to figure this out for themselves. It's like me telling you the answer, the plot to a movie you want to watch. No, you watch the movie, experience life. These are tools which will help you get through those moments. And there's the other part of it too, which is just speaking the truth, and understand there are times when you sit there and open your mouth and have the confidence that what is spoken is meant to be heard and meant to be said, and meant to be dealt with. If often when I used to travel, which was up until March of last year, if I were to speak, I was blessed with 24 years of not spending more than 14 to 16 days in any given city. Often it was because I was either hosting, producing, or speaking at a conference. And when those times came where I went on stage, I went with no slides, no notes. I just went up there to talk. The absolute confidence that whatever was said that moment was meant to be shared with the group that was in front of me. Never to be afraid of what to say, because I know that whatever is meant to be heard will be heard. And that works very well like that. So don't ever really ask me what I spoke about in Trinidad or Tel Aviv or New York City or LA, because I don't remember. Because I believe when you connect with the universe speaks through you. You are maybe just a channel for what's to be heard. But when you allow yourself to speak that truth, you're manifesting your future and bringing back together your past and your present all as one. And it's a wonderful example of how the universe can just bring it all together. And anyone can do that. But we are the ones that say no. We are our own worst enemies when we need to be our own best friends. It's that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I do apologize, but not exactly. But frankly, if you want to do something, there's no one who should say no to you. I mean, I do believe in do no harm, and I'm not talking about doing something bad for the world. I'm talking about something passionate and good that ultimately is good for everyone. That if people don't get you, that's their fault. It's not your fault. You're allowed to think differently. If we waited for consensus for ideas, the world would never evolve. We'd still be walking around with stones as means of transportation. A wheel would not exist. It takes absolutely crazy people out of their mind to be the misfits that will change the world around us each and every day. So requires a little bit of absolute confidence and absolute crazy, zany in the most beautiful way, with the ability to shut out that noise and know and have the confidence that you are that person that will bring that change, first to you, and then a couple of others, and ultimately to the universe at large. So everyone can make a difference. Every voice matters. Everyone. We're not alone. And when we work together, it is the magic of the universe that brings life to all that we do. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, because when we combine this whole way of creation and seeing and so on, but we unify with people. We started something called the Peace Lab. It's basically like a laboratory, or like walking the Chartres labyrinth. We are creating more and more peace through the collaboration of people all around the world, looking for the philosopher's stone or the missing link that hasn't given us peace so far. There's also we produced a whole week-long series on Humanity Rising's Global Solutions platform. It's an hour and a half every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning Pacific time and so on. Starts up again in September. But we produced a whole week with incredible guests coming on to be able to share their expertise like Carla is doing. And this had the effect of, just because we had that idea, we drew these people to us. We ended up getting Dr. Bruce Lipton on. We had Lois Stark on. We have amazing people lined up for the Peace Lab to show how we can create peace in every aspect of life. The slogan for the Peace Lab is peace in everything, everything with peace. So when I rock forward and back, this is the mantra: peace in everything. We're bending backwards, breathing in, and we bend forward, breathing out, everything with peace. Peace in everything, everything with peace. And we do this simple psychosomatic spiritual practice, putting that muscle memory into our memory, that thought into our memory. It can be in any language, which is very beautiful, and unlike a Sanskrit mantra like the TM would give you or something like that, and allows us to begin to see it, think it, and be it more. So we can have all of it, and there's no reason why we can't. It's just a thought that we can't have peace because it's never happened before. Or we can't stop this thing called atomic weapons. Well, we can. We can. Gandhi proved that you can change a whole country, overthrow the biggest power in the world at the time, this British Empire, by peaceful means. It was the most peaceful it could have been. Had they tried to fight, it would have been a bloodbath. But because of the power versus force, the power being the truth power, he walked his talk. Other people saw that, felt that, and could experience it, because that power of one draws all these others to it. And this is how we get to be able to transform the world, get to be a real cosmic tuning fork. And there's a beautiful book by Prince Charles. It's called Harmony. And it's a magical book. And when you read it, he brings in science. He brings in everything about it, from music, of course, harmony and music and so on, so that we can bring harmony to life. And this is what it's about. Pythagoras could hear the spheres in space. I don't know if you know much about Pythagoras' life. He was not just a mathematician. He was a great, great philosopher, around 700 AD or somewhere like that. Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. And believe it or not, we are coming to the end of this show. I didn't realize it had gone that far. I'd like everyone to just put in maybe not more than a minute, guys. Just your final thoughts about this conversation that we just had. And I'm going to start with the men and come back to us ladies. Kurt, 1 minute, please.
I won't go over anything. Creation is really up to us in what we create through using our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. And when we have just simple thought like love, serve, and remember all are one. The golden rule: treat others like we would like to be treated. And we get to thrive rather than just survive. And when you get stressed out, force a smile on your face. It produces neuroendorphins and immediately changes the feel of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff.
Just remember, we are never alone. Anything anything truly is possible. You can manifest destiny. Destiny can manifest you. It depends upon your perspective. When you learn to let go of what you are afraid of and to embrace fear with the same focus as you embrace life, you are unstoppable. And when you wake up and you live that day and each and every day with meaning, you are unbounded. And when you discover that you are unbounded, magic awaits. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Jean.
Well, the original question, do our thoughts make our world, or does the world make our thoughts? The answer is yes. It's all about how you interpret the question. And I want to invite everybody to take the first step and decide that it's okay to choose your own destiny, to thoughtfully respond to situations versus emotionally react. Making that one change will lead you onto a new path. And as Kurt said, smile while you do it. It makes a great difference.
Thank you, Jeannie. And for me, I believe we create our own words and our thoughts. And we need to become aware that when we're on a downward swing, be aware that just one thought, like switching the light switch on, can change your thinking. You won't do it right away at first. You may never do it immediately. But the more you practice doing it, the more you're going to make it as a part of your life. And you'll see that the world will become different. And it's up to you to make that change for yourself and then see what happens around you. And with that, we are at the end of this show of MindPlore. I want to thank these wonderful guests, Kurt Kruger, Jeff Pulver, and Jean for joining me. And we're going to wave goodbye, and we'll be back again on Tuesday. Let's wave goodbye.